Hello, I'm Diane. Welcome to Women in the Weeds. We're walking through the Word of God together. I'm encouraging you to read the Word of God with me every day. I'm going to put the link down below in the description. Even if you have 5 minutes, God will speak to you, I promise. All right, we are in Matthew 8. This is yesterday's reading. I'm a day behind, but this is so important and so beautiful. I really wanted to talk about it. Okay, so we're going to start in Romans 8:23. It says that Jesus got into a boat with his disciples. He was going across the lake, and a furious storm was raging while Jesus was sleeping. And the waves were coming over the boat, and they thought they were going to be swamped and they were going to die. So the disciples woke up Jesus and said, "Jesus, don't you care that we are going to drown?" And Jesus says, "You of little faith, why are you so afraid?" And he commands the winds and the waves to be calm, and they were completely still. The men were amazed at this. And then Jesus gets to the other side of the lake, and he's met with two demonized men. This is in the land of Gadarenes. I want to say a little bit about Gadarenes first. So Gadarenes is an area. It's not a town, but it's an area. And it also has a couple other names, but it's part of what's called the Decapolis. The Decapolis were 10 cities in this region, all east of Galilee. The northernmost Decapolis city was Damascus, and then it went all the way down to this area, and even a little farther southeast and east. In this area, this particular area across from the Lake of Galilee used to be part of Israel, and it was part of the tribe of Manasseh. Now, we haven't gotten there yet in the Old Testament, but Manasseh was one of the tribes of Israel, and when they conquered Canaan and they were given the land to become a nation, each tribe had their own land. And this particular land, which here is called Gadarenes, was Manasseh. Now, when we walk through the Word of God and we go through the Old Testament, hopefully you'll see that God loved Manasseh. God called Manasseh his son. And Manasseh rebelled against God and joined with all the land and the people and the world around them, intermarried, worshipped their gods, forgot about God, rebelled against God, and eventually completely lost their identity with God. This is the land where the Gadarenes are right now. So there's some kind of mixture of other people and some Jewish heritage here. And I find that to be very significant because, as we've talked about so far, as we've been walking through the Word of God, when we are close to God, we are whole, and when we are away from God, we are unwell. And another way of that is when we're close to God, we feel clean and whole, and we feel healthy. And when we're away from God, we are unwell, unhealthy, and another word for that is unclean. So we have here in this story where there's two men in this story, but this story is also documented in Luke 8 and Mark 5. Both of them give a little bit more detail to the story. In Mark 5, I like the description of what the demonized men are going through. It says, this man lived in burial caves and could no longer be restrained, even with a chain. Whenever he was put into chains or shackles, he broke them and could be completely unrestrained. He would snap off the chains. He would smash the shackles. No one was able to subdue him. Day and night he wandered. He was howling, and he was cutting himself with sharp stones. This really breaks my heart. This breaks my heart because I know people like this. I know children like this. I know adults like this. Today, children and adults are shackled with a chemical restraint. And I've seen many children who are cutting themselves, harming themselves, bruising themselves, because they have so much inner turmoil and pain inside. I know children, I've seen children pick up furniture and throw it across the room, young children, because they've been abused and neglected. I know people who are shackled with tremendous fear and anxiety and depression, who feel that they live in a tomb, who have difficulty functioning because of deep grief and loss. And I know people who are steeped with anger and rage because they've been abandoned, neglected, abused, and shunned and unwanted. And it breaks my heart that that they are chemically restrained. What we have here in this story is Jesus. He goes through a storm. Have you ever wondered why that storm erupted on that lake as he's going to the Gadarenes? The enemy didn't want Jesus to set this man free. But Jesus went through a storm to get there. And when he gets there, he calls this man. And he delivers this man. And this man sits at his feet, fully dressed and in his right mind. That's amazing to me. He knew this man was suffering, and he went to get him, delivered him, clothed him, and gave him a new mind. That's very interesting to me because in this land of worldliness, of uncleanness, where they've lost their identity, the story goes that Jesus talks to this man and says, "What's your name?" And they say, "Our name is Legion, for there are many of us." And those are the demons. And they begged Jesus, "Throw us in." There was a herd of pigs. They said, "Throw us into the pigs." So Jesus says, "Okay." He casts these demons out of this man, and they went into the pigs, and the pigs rushed headlong over the cliff and into the ocean. Now, there were some pig herders there, and when they found out about that, when they saw that happen, they went back to town and they told everyone. And when they came out and they saw the demonized man, the demoniac, in his right mind, clothed and at the feet of Jesus, don't you think they would be happy? Don't you think they'd be celebrating? Don't you think they'd be full of joy that this man who had suffered so much and caused so much anguish even for them, that he was healed? No. They were upset and angry and fearful, and they asked Jesus to leave. And Jesus got in this boat and left. So interesting. And it's a picture of how when we love the world more than Jesus, what injustice. They loved pigs. They loved pigs more than this man's sanity. More than they would rather be unclean than see this man clean. They'd rather have money than to see this man whole. That's the way of the world. But that's not just the way of the world. I was thinking about this. We have Jesus and his disciples coming in the boat on the way, and there's this raging storm. Now, these disciples have been with Jesus for a while. They've heard his teaching. They've seen him heal people. They've seen him do miracles and signs and wonders. And yet they get in this boat, and when the waves are crashing around, they cry out in fear, "Jesus, don't you care that we will be drowned?" And Jesus rebukes them and says, "Why ye of little faith?" Isn't that interesting? So we have two types of people here. I kind of wrote some notes about it. One, you've got the Jews who are very proud of their heritage. And then you've got these men in the Decapolis who've forgotten their heritage. You have these men who know of Jesus' power and feel powerful by association, and yet this demoniac has no power at all. And then you have You have the Jew. Sorry, I'm distracted because I think my husband's coming in the room. So you have these men who are, they want God to come and powerfully remove the oppression of Rome. And then you have this demoniac who's completely oppressed. It's as if the disciples wanted the power of Jesus for a political purpose, but they didn't know that God loved them. They didn't know Jesus loved them. They were proud of their identity, but they didn't know that Jesus loved them. And this man, this demoniac, had lost his identity altogether. And Jesus went through a raging storm in order to deliver him. Sisters, I just want to tell you today, are you shackled? Are you shackled by anything? Are you self-harming in ways maybe you don't even realize, that you do things that do not add to your wellness, but add to your uncleanness? Jesus is coming for you. He's riding the storm. He's going through that furious storm to get to you, to call you by name, to clothe you in his righteousness. Come, sisters, sit at his feet. Listen to his words, and you will be in your right mind. Have a good night. Bye-bye.